I'm with you, come back, please.
There's a moment every man knows too well when a single text feels like a test of his worth. You hit send, the message flies off, and suddenly time slows. Minutes feel like hours. You check your phone again and again, hoping for a notification that never comes. And in that silence, doubts creep in. Did I say too much? Too little? Should I have waited? But what if you discovered that texting wasn't about chasing responses, but about controlling the energy you project? What if the difference between being ignored and being irresistible came down to 3 simple principles, grounded not in tricks, but in timeless Stoic wisdom? Because here's the truth. Women don't respond to words. They respond to how those words make them feel. And when a man texts with clarity.com and intention, something shifts. The dynamic flips, they lean in, they respond. They feel the gravity of your presence even through a screen. Today, you're about to learn 3 texting secrets women can't resist through the lens of Stoicism. And once you understand them, you'll never overthink a message again. Before we break this down, make sure you hit like if you want more Stoic mindset content, and subscribe so you never miss the next video. And if this topic resonates with you, share it with someone who needs a bit of calm confidence in their life. Now, let's dive in. There's a strange paradox in modern communication. We have more ways to connect than at any point in human history, yet so many men feel powerless behind a simple text message. One small bubble on a screen holds enough emotional weight to shake confidence, stir anxiety, and create a spiral of overthinking. But here's the truth. Most men never hear texting has nothing to do with clever phrasing. It has nothing to do with emojis, timing tricks, or playing cold. The real power behind a message comes from something far deeper. Your presence. If your presence is calm, grounded, intentional, your words carry weight. If your presence is anxious, needy, uncertain, your words fall flat. This is where Stoicism enters the picture. Not as a philosophy to make you emotionless, but as a framework that sharpens your awareness and stabilizes your energy. And once you apply it to texting, the entire dynamic shifts. You stop chasing, you start leading, you stop proving, you start expressing, you stop reacting, you start choosing. And that single shift transforms how women experience you even through a tiny screen. The hidden truth about texting that most men miss. Let's start with something most men never realize. Women don't respond to messages. They respond to the energy behind the messages. Think back to every time you've texted from insecurity. You rewrote the sentence 5 times, tried to make it sound interesting, debated whether you should send a smiley or not, questioned if you should wait 10 minutes so you wouldn't appear desperate. Now picture the energy behind that message. It doesn't matter how perfectly it's written. The emotional fingerprint is still the same: uncertainty. On the other hand, imagine the energy of a man who knows his worth. He texts when he wants to communicate, not when he wants validation. He speaks clearly, not strategically. He shares his intention, not a performance. Same words, different energy. And that difference is what women feel immediately. Stoicism teaches one central lesson that applies perfectly here. You cannot control how others respond. You can only control how you show up. Once you internalize that, your entire texting life gets lighter. You no longer fear the silence. You no longer overanalyze the scene receipts. You no longer chase because you're not trying to control the other person. You're mastering yourself. The Stoic shift from reacting to leading modern dating is filled with reactive texting. A woman takes 3 hours to reply, he panics. A message appears called he over-explains. The conversation slows, he tries harder. And every reaction makes him lose presence. Stoicism flips this script. You move at your pace. You speak when you choose. You remain composed regardless of the outcome. You don't match her delay to play games. That's reactive. You don't double text to chase certainty. That's emotional outsourcing. You don't ask, did I say something wrong? That's giving your power away. Instead, you root yourself in internal control. What do I want to express? What intention do I have behind this message? Does this text reflect my values or my anxiety? Every time you ask those questions, you strengthen your presence. And presence is what creates respect, interest, and connection. Not clever lines, not speed.presence. You text like you live. Here's something harsh but true. Your texting patterns reflect your internal state. If your life lacks purpose, you text for distraction. If your self-esteem is unsteady, you text for validation. If you fear losing someone, you text from insecurity. If your world is small, you text to fill the silence. A woman feels this instantly even if she can't name it. She might say, "He seems too eager. Something feels off. I don't know. The vibe just isn't there." What she's really feeling is the emotional imprint of your mindset, not your words, not your grammar, not your timing, your inner world. This is why Stoicism is the ultimate upgrade for modern men. It teaches you to build a strong inner world that doesn't depend on her response time, tone, or mood. Once you stabilize your internal state, you transform into a man who texts with clarity and impact because your presence is steady, and steady presence is extremely attractive, especially in a world full of frantic, reactive, emotionally unstable messaging. One of the core Stoic teachings is simple, yet life-changing. Do your part, release the rest. In texting, this means send the message that reflects your intention, not your fear. Send the message that aligns with your character, not your cravings. Send the message that serves connection, not approval. Once it's sent, let go. Really, let go. Because what she does next is outside your control, and anything outside your control should not disturb your peace. This is the Stoic way. A man who sends a message and goes right back to his life has an aura of calm. A man who stares at the screen, checks every minute, and spirals into doubt, leaks insecurity in every direction. When she feels calmness, she leans in. When she feels anxiety, she pulls away. Humans are wired to move toward emotional stability, not instability. Stoic principle number 2, speak with intention, not excess, Marcus Aurelius once wrote. If it is not necessary, do not say it. Most men text too much, too soon, too often. They fill the gaps because silence feels uncomfortable. They send long paragraphs because they want reassurance. They overshare because they want closeness instantly.
Doesn't need to overshare. Doesn't need instant approval. Doesn't need to fill silence. Doesn't chase validation. It shows confidence without saying, "I'm confident." It demonstrates presence without saying, "I'm present." It creates interest without begging for attention. The Stoics believed influence came from self-control, not force. And curiosity is the ultimate expression of that idea. You don't force connection, you inspire it. You don't demand attention, you attract it. You don't try to impress. You become intriguing by simply being intentional. When you consistently send texts that spark curiosity, something shifts. She starts initiating. She starts asking questions. She starts thinking about you when you're not texting. She starts imagining the next conversation. She invests emotionally before you've even revealed much. That's the power of curiosity. It pulls someone into your orbit, softly, naturally, effortlessly, and when combined with Stoic calmness, it becomes magnetic. Curiosity is not a trick. It's a doorway, a psychological pathway that turns simple conversations into emotional experiences. Once you learn to open that door with intention, you will never struggle for replies again. You won't need to chase. You won't need to force. You won't need to overthink. Because now, your words don't just get read. They get felt. Curiosity is the spark. Anticipation is the flame. It's the slow burn, the pull, the invisible tension that makes someone think about you long after the conversation ends. Where curiosity makes a woman lean in, anticipation makes her stay engaged. It makes your presence linger in her mind like an unfinished melody. She checks her phone more often. She wonders what you'll say next. She replays your last message because something about it felt open, incomplete, alive. And here's the key insight most men never understand. Anticipation is created through timing, restraint, and emotional pacing, not clever words. You don't create anticipation by being mysterious for the sake of it. You create it by guiding the rhythm of the conversation with calm, intentional pauses, and just enough withheld information to make her feel something. This feeling, this sense of waiting for more, is what makes your presence magnetic. Anticipation activates dopamine, our motivation chemical. Not the reward itself, but the expectation of the reward. Think about the excitement before a trip, not the trip itself. Think about the moment before a first kiss, not the kiss itself. Think about the seconds before your favorite song drops, not the drop itself. The build-up is emotional electricity. The waiting is the thrill. The suspense is often more gripping than the moment you're waiting for. When your texts create that build-up, you're engaging her on a chemical level, naturally, ethically, without games. You're awakening a psychological rhythm that every human responds to. Most men skip this. They rush. They reveal too much too soon. They give answers immediately. They explain everything up front. They dump all the information in one message. And just like that, the dopamine pathway shuts down. There's nothing left to anticipate. Why most men destroy anticipation without realizing it. Here's the pattern. A woman shows a bit of interest, and a man floods her with access. He texts constantly, replies instantly, shares everything, reveals all his excitement at once. This doesn't create connection. It creates emotional saturation. When she knows exactly what you're thinking, doing, feeling, and planning, there's no space for imagination, no room for tension, no chance for her to wonder. It feels flat, predictable, unstimulating. Anticipation thrives in openness, not overload. In hints, not full explanations. In pauses, not noisy overcommunication. And this is where Stoicism becomes your greatest advantage. Epictetus taught that discipline and delayed gratification are forms of strength, not withholding out of fear, but withholding out of intention. The Stoics understood that control over impulse creates clarity, and clarity creates presence. When you apply this to texting, anticipation emerges organically. You practice self-restraint by not rushing to answer the moment she replies, not instantly revealing what you noticed or realized, not being the first to fill silence, not dumping long explanations, giving her a piece, not the whole picture. This isn't game playing. It's emotional pacing. It's communication with rhythm. The man who paces the interaction creates the emotional frame, and the person who sets the pace sets the tone of the entire dynamic. The art of delayed reveal, subtle but powerful. Let's break down how anticipation works in an actual conversation. Imagine you send this message. I realized something interesting about you today. She responds, what is it? Most men immediately answer, oh, I realize you're in a conversation over. Loop closed. Emotion gone. Instead, you create a gentle delay. It's a little odd, but let me ask you something first. Now she's leaning forward. Emotion activated. Tension rising. Or if she says, tell me, you respond, I will, but you have to guess once. This simple move does three things simultaneously. It makes her participate. It keeps the emotional loop open. It deepens her investment. Every guess she makes attaches her more to the moment. Every pause you create increases the emotional pull. Every delayed reveal intensifies the dopamine response. And the best part? You don't need dramatic stories. You don't need manipulation. You don't need to be someone you're not. Anticipation is created through presence, not performance. Anticipation through timing, a Stoic superpower. Timing doesn't mean playing hard to get. Timing means moving intentionally, not reactively. A Stoic man never floods the moment. He doesn't interrupt her emotional process. He doesn't break the rhythm because he's anxious. He lets space do some of the talking. You don't need to reply instantly. You don't need to fill every gap. You don't need to rush the reveal. Because here's the truth. Space creates desire. Clarity creates trust. Pacing creates emotional momentum. The ancient Stoics believed in the strength of stillness. And stillness, properly used, is magnetic. In texting, stillness appears as thoughtful pauses, patient reveals, and calm timing. How to use language that builds anticipation. You create anticipation through wording that suggests more is coming. Phrases like, you'll laugh at this. I had a realization, but I'm curious what you think first. There's a little more to the story. I'm debating whether to tell you the rest. There's a fun detail I haven't mentioned yet. These lines don't demand attention. They invite it. They don't force excitement. They activate it. They don't reveal everything. They reveal just enough. Remember, anticipation is created not by adding more words, but by adding more possibilities. Anticipation makes her want to reply, not out of courtesy, but out of feeling. Women don't respond because they should. They respond because they feel something, a pull. But closeness isn't built through volume. It's built through precision. A short, intentional message carries authority. A long, anxious message carries uncertainty. Stoic presence means you don't waste words. You don't dump your thoughts. You don't chase with explanations. You speak clearly. You speak calmly. You speak with purpose. And because of that restraint, your messages feel different. They stand out. They carry weight. They leave space for her imagination, space for interest to grow. Words are like oxygen. Too much suffocates, too little starves. But the right amount, it breathes life into connection. A lot of men see silence as a threat. Stoic men see silence as a tool. One well-timed pause creates mystery, space, contrast, excitement, anticipation, emotional gravity. Silence isn't the absence of communication. It's a part of communication. The problem is, most men break silence too quickly. They fear it. They rush to fill it. They feel invisible if they're not texting. But when a man is comfortable in silence, he radiates self-respect. He shows he chooses his presence. He doesn't give it away impulsively. And women feel that difference instantly. So what does a Stoic man look like through text? Not detached, not cold, not emotionless, but calm, intentional, grounded, focused, precise. He texts from values, not impulse. He texts from presence, not pressure. He texts to connect, not to cling. Women feel that, and they respond to it. Not because he's playing a game, but because he's aligned with himself. And self-alignment is magnetic. Curiosity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. It pulls, it provokes, it awakens. It's the spark that makes someone lean forward instead of leaning away. And when it comes to texting, curiosity is the difference between a reply you wait hours for and a reply that lands instantly. Most men text in ways that kill curiosity without even knowing it. They text to check in, to be polite, or to keep the conversation going. Messages like, "How's your day? What are you doing? Hope you're doing well." These aren't bad, but they're predictable, expected, familiar. There's no emotional hook, no mental puzzle, no spark. And in a woman's mind, predictable equals forgettable. Curiosity, on the other hand, does something entirely different. It opens a loop in the brain, a loop that the mind needs to close. It's why people click mysterious headlines, why we binge-watch shows, why cliffhangers work. Humans can't resist wanting to know what's next. So if you want a woman to lean into your messages, you don't need to be clever. You need to be interesting. And interesting doesn't mean long paragraphs or dramatic statements. It means leaving just enough unsaid that her mind begins to reach toward you automatically. Every time you send a message that opens a question, any question, you create what psychologists call an open loop. An open loop is an incomplete idea, and the brain hates incompletion. Think of it like this. When you hint at something, when you imply instead of explain, when you nudge her imagination instead of filling in the details, her mind begins to work with you. She starts guessing, predicting, imagining. And the more she imagines, the more emotionally involved she becomes. Most men do the opposite. They explain too much. They overclarify. They try too hard to be understood. But Stoic communication is built on restraint. It's powerful not because of what you say, but because of what you don't say. Marcus Aurelius taught, if it's not essential, don't add it. In texting, that becomes, if the detail doesn't add intrigue, leave it out. When you leave small gaps, you create curiosity. When you fill every gap, you create boredom. Let's take a simple example. Most men will message something like, "Today was crazy. Someone spilled coffee on me at work, and I had to." Continues long explanation. She reads it, smiles, scrolls, forgets. Why? Because there's nothing for her to do. There's no space for her imagination. No mystery. No mental engagement. Her brain sees a completed loop. Finished story. No involvement. But imagine you wrote, "You would not believe what happened to me today." Now something changes. She wants to know, She feels pulled in. Her mind starts filling in possibilities before you even type the next word. Or something even simpler. You randomly crossed my mind today in the weirdest way. That message creates instant emotional gravity. She needs to know why. She needs the connection point. That tiny mental itch is curiosity. And curiosity is irresistible. People misunderstand Stoicism as emotional detachment. But real Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about choosing what to give energy to. A Stoic man is intentional. And intentionality is incredibly attractive. When you send a message that sparks curiosity, you aren't manipulating, you're being mindful. You're communicating with purpose instead of throwing words around hoping for attention. Stoicism teaches, speak with meaning. Say only what serves the moment. A curious message does exactly that. It serves the moment. It invites connection without forcing it. It opens a door without pushing someone through it. And it frames you as a man who moves with subtlety and depth. Not noise, not pressure, not insecurity. Here's the secret most men never learn. Curiosity is created through simplicity, not complexity. You don't need poetic lines. You don't need long explanations. You don't need theatrics. You need impactful minimalism. A single sentence can do more than 5 paragraphs if it hints instead of explains. For example, you did something unexpected in my dream last night. I just noticed something interesting about you. There's something about you I still haven't figured out. I think you'd actually laugh at what just happened. These aren't tricks. They're invitations. They open a loop one her brain wants to close. And the beauty of this approach is that it forces you to slow down. It forces you to think. It forces you to have intention behind your words. This is precisely what Stoicism wants from you, awareness instead of impulse. What happens after she replies is just as important. Like, what happened? Tell me, what did I do in your dream? What did you notice? The instinct for many men is to dump the answer immediately. They feel excited she responded. They want to keep her attention. So they over-explain. That kills curiosity instantly. Instead, you deepen the mystery. It's a little strange. But first, let me ask you something. Or, I'll tell you, but you have to guess once. Or, let me see if you think like I think. Now you're not just texting, you're creating engagement. You're creating participation. You're creating a sense of playfulness and intrigue. Her mind stays active. Her emotions stay involved. Her imagination keeps working. This is how the interaction becomes memorable. Not because of your words, but because of the experience you create with those words. Most men try to stand out by doing too much, over-flirting, over-complimenting, over-texting, but curiosity does the opposite. It makes you stand out by doing less, strategic, intentional, meaningful less that IT positions you as a man who, a spark, a curiosity, a need to know. When your messages evoke anticipation, she becomes emotionally invested. An emotional investment is the foundation of all attraction. Her mind stays engaged. Her thoughts drift toward you naturally. She checks her phone because she wants to, not because she feels obligated. She asks questions. She mirrors your pace. She remembers the conversation. You've created an emotional imprint. And emotional imprints last. The Stoic advantage. Anticipation without anxiety. Most men try to create anticipation from a place of fear. Fear she'll lose interest. Fear she'll forget him. Fear she's talking to someone else. But fear destroys presence. Stoicism teaches you to detach from the outcome. So when you create anticipation, it's not from panic, but from groundedness, from steadiness, from a calm inner world. That calmness shapes every message you send. You're not rushing. You're not grasping. You're not performing. You are pacing the connection with confidence. And confidence is irresistible. When you master anticipation, conversations follow your lead. You'll notice the shift. She leans in. She asks more questions. She becomes more playful. She invests more emotion. She remembers your words. She responds faster. Not because you're playing a game, but because you're speaking to her psychology, and your presence feels different. Anticipation turns every conversation into a slow, intriguing dance. Not rushed, not forced, not heavy, just the perfect pace that makes connection feel alive. When combined with curiosity, anticipation becomes your quiet superpower, a magnetic force that draws her toward you without pressure or performance. And once you learn this skill, you'll never text the same way again. A spark, a curiosity, a need to know. When your messages evoke anticipation, she becomes emotionally invested. An emotional investment is the foundation of all attraction. Her mind stays engaged. Her thoughts drift toward you naturally. She checks her phone because she wants to, not because she feels obligated. She asks questions. She mirrors your pace. She remembers the conversation. You've created an emotional imprint. And emotional imprints last. The Stoic advantage. Anticipation without anxiety. Most men try to create anticipation from a place of fear. Fear she'll lose interest. Fear she'll forget him. Fear she's talking to someone else. But fear destroys presence. Stoicism teaches you to detach from the outcome. So when you create anticipation, it's not from panic, but from groundedness, from steadiness, from a calm inner world. That calmness shapes every message you send. You're not rushing. You're not grasping. You are not performing. You are pacing the connection with confidence. And confidence is irresistible. When you master anticipation, conversations follow your lead. You'll notice the shift. She leans in. She asks more questions. She becomes more playful. She invests more emotion. She remembers your words. She responds faster. Not because you're playing a game, but because you're speaking to her psychology, and your presence feels different. Anticipation turns every conversation into a slow, intriguing dance. Not rushed, not forced, not heavy, just the perfect pace that makes connection feel alive. When combined with curiosity, anticipation becomes your quiet superpower, a magnetic force that draws her toward you without pressure or performance. And once you learn this skill, you'll never text the same way again. Compliments are one of the most misunderstood tools in communication. Most men treat them like shortcuts to attraction, quick ways to win approval, spark interest, or stand out. But the reality is harsher. The wrong compliments push women away faster than silence ever could. Not because men mean harm, but because they often give compliments from the wrong place. Anxious energy, insecurity, or a desire to impress. Women can feel the intention behind your words. A compliment said to seek validation feels different than a compliment said to express awareness. A compliment rooted in emptiness feels different than a compliment rooted in presence. And this is why Stoicism becomes so important. A Stoic man doesn't compliment to get something. He compliments to express something. He compliments from clarity, not craving. From observation, not desperation. From inner stability, not emotional need. This chapter is about transforming compliments from meaningless noise into powerful, grounding moments that deepen connection and make a woman feel genuinely seen. Because once you master the art of a real compliment, one with depth, it stays with her long after the message disappears. Let's start with the common mistakes. Most men give compliments that fall into one of three categories. 1. Too generic. You're so beautiful. You're gorgeous. You're cute. She's heard these thousands of times. They blend into the background. They lack originality, depth, and intention. 2. Too physical. Focusing only on looks signals that you see her the same way everyone else does. Surface level. Women want to feel seen for their depth, not just their appearance. 3. Too immediate. Complimenting too early screams. I don't even know you yet, but I'm already seeking your approval. It feels rushed, premature, uncalibrated. None of this creates emotional connection. It creates predictable reactions, polite appreciation, slight discomfort, or complete disinterest. Stoicism teaches, observe first, then speak. A compliment without observation is noise. A compliment built on observation is connection. Rather than reacting to a woman's appearance, the Stoic man slowed down. He pays attention to her mindset, her values, her way of thinking, her emotional presence, her energy, her character, her uniqueness. And because he sees what others overlook, his words land differently. They hit deeper. They feel rarer. Seneca said, "Praise not what is common, but what is rare." Beauty is common. Deep traits are rare. Confidence is rare. Clarity is rare. Softness is rare. Self-awareness is rare. Perspective is rare. When you compliment a rare quality, you're saying, "I see the part of you not everyone notices." That's what makes a woman feel truly seen. Let's look at the difference. Generic, "You're so beautiful." Stoic style, "There's something calm about your presence." Hard to find. Generic, "You're cute." Stoic style, "You have a way of seeing things that's refreshingly honest." Generic, "You look great." Stoic style, "There's a confidence in the way you carry yourself. It stands out." Notice the pattern? These compliments aren't about appearance. They're about essence. They aren't about validation. They're about awareness. They aren't about impressing. They're about observing. And women respond to observation far more deeply than they respond to approval. Why these compliments work? These compliments generate emotional impact because 1. They show depth. You're noticing things most people overlook. It sets you apart instantly. 2. They reveal your values. When you compliment depth, you reveal that you value depth. This makes you appear thoughtful, selective, and intentional. 3. They feel personal. You're speaking to who she is, not what she looks like. 4. They create emotional safety. She feels appreciated without feeling judged or objectified. 5. They make her curious about how you see people. And curiosity creates attraction. Most importantly, deep compliments make a woman feel seen on the level that actually matters, that a compliment loses power when it's thrown randomly into a conversation. When it's forced, when it's placed too early, when it's used to fill silence, when it's used to impress. But when a compliment arrives after she shares something personal, meaningful, or revealing, it lands with weight. For example, if she shares a goal, you say, "I like how you don't just dream, you take action." That's rare. If she opens up about a fear or insecurity, "I respect how honest you are." A lot of people hide that part. If she talks about her passion, there's something grounding about the way you talk about things you care about. This is timing with intention. Stoic timing. Compliments that respond to who she is in the moment, not who she is on the surface. This is how emotional depth is created. You shouldn't avoid physical compliments. You should elevate them. Make them specific. Make them personal. Make them sincere. Make them tied to energy, not just appearance. Instead of saying, "You're pretty," try, "There's something calm about your smile. It feels grounded." Instead of, "You're hot," try, "There's a confidence in your presence that's more attractive than looks." Instead of, "You look good," try, "You have a warmth in your eyes that feels real, not performative." When a physical compliment connects to energy, emotion, or atmosphere, it stops being shallow and becomes meaningful. Most compliments are attempts to impress. Stoic compliments are expressions of clarity. When you compliment to impress, your energy says, "Please like me." When you compliment to express, your energy says, "I see you." This difference is everything. One makes you look needy. The other makes you look grounded. One pushes her away. The other draws her closer. Our compliments don't just reveal what you see in her. They reveal what you value in yourself. If you only praise appearance, it says your world is shallow. If you praise depth, it shows you seek depth. If you compliment presence, it shows you have presence. If you acknowledge emotional awareness, it shows you're emotionally aware. Compliments are mirrors. What you praise reflects who you are. And women feel this deeply. The right compliment at the right moment does more than make her smile. It becomes a memory, something she thinks about later, something she shares with her friends, something that lingers in her mind. Because it wasn't superficial. It wasn't needy. It wasn't generic. It wasn't manipulative. It was grounded, intentional, clear, different. When you master deep compliments, you step into a rare category of men. The ones who make women feel seen, understood, appreciated, and safe to express themselves. And once a woman feels that with you, everything shifts. Your texts aren't just words anymore. They're experiences. Your presence isn't just digital. It's emotional. Your connection isn't just conversation. It's resonance. This is the power of compliments that land on the soul, not the surface. And it's the final piece of the Stoic texting approach. Curiosity pulls her in. Anticipation keeps her engaged. Depth makes her stay. Master these 3 principles, and you stop texting like a man seeking attention. You begin texting like a man who commands it effortlessly.